I have boarded a train and it is impossible to get off. Born in 1972, 27 years after the end of the Second World War, I assumed the role of a witness to an event that I never experienced myself. My name is Stephen Jolson. I am an architect in Melbourne, Australia. I am a third-generation survivor of the Holocaust, a grandchild of refugees who emigrated to Melbourne in 1947 and became part of the largest community of Holocaust survivors in the world outside of Israel. The history of a city is inseparably linked to the people who live within it and is a locus of collective memory. I am proud and revere the opportunity I have been given to design the memorial room located within the Melbourne Holocaust Museum by Kirsten Thompson Architects. Whilst it is a small space, it is charged with an enormous legacy. The story of the refugee embedded in Melbourne's rich diversity. It allows visitors to pay their respect to the victims of the Holocaust and their families who settled in Melbourne after the war, whose families emerged from the shadows of darkness and gave birth to a community, and to propagate collective memory within a broader community fabric. The room is located behind the existing facade of the original heritage-listed building. The memorial room not only admonishes our capacity to turn a blind eye to the crises that occur, but also celebrates how collective memory has strength to bind our resilience together. Our design poetically tells a story about the Star of David as a symbol of religion and identity, victimisation and discrimination, brokenness and fragmentation, destruction and extermination, solidarity and community. The floor has been etched in perpetuity like the ink in their forearms, to create a compendium of the unintended pathways of a group of people who are wandering no more. Lined in steel like the rails of their transports, we too engage in a selection process of sorts, by dividing the floor in two, like the fate of those who arrived at the camps. To the left are the names of the places the victims and survivors lived before the war and were forced to travel. And to the right are the names of the camps where the survivors laboured and the victims murdered. To represent the 6 major death camps, we've generated a bar graph in the floor made from highly polished stainless steel and inscribed the name of each major camp at the end of the line. The graph intersects the cities and places, depicting in scale the sheer quantum of loss. The 7th polished track that heads towards the dreaded east from border to border carries the Kaddish, a sacred Hebrew prayer for the dead as it rises towards the light. The story of our journey is depicted by the images of the people who were witnesses to the event. Our heritage packed into their suitcases or carried on their backs. These are the faces of our grandparents, our mothers or fathers, husbands or wives, sisters or brothers, sons or daughters who were murdered. Made from blackened steel, we've created a series of polarising silhouettes which resonate with emotional and physical body language, communicating the universal burden of their experiences without words. The Star of David removed to allow the emptiness to resonate, whilst we reflect indefinitely into the dark void of the mirror-like surface of the silhouettes. The faces of our community, the faces of our children and their children, perhaps in recognition that if not for time, it could have been us. There are 7 silhouettes or shields of armour placed around the room, extruded from the lines of the major death camps. The 7th silhouette, an image of my grandparents as they emigrated to Australia by ship in 1947 on board the Johann de Witt. My grandmother, pregnant with my late father, depicting the hopeful migrant story like so many Melbourne refugees, starting new lives safe from atrocity. The number 7 is one of the greatest digits in Judaism. 7 represents the number of full days a new baby boy must pass through as a creature perfect in body before they can be circumcised. There were 7 days of creation, and on the 7th day we rested. We made 7 lamps or branches of human knowledge, are blessed 7 times at our weddings, with our brides making 7 circuits around us. And when we die, we observe 7 days of mourning. As in Jewish memoriam, we light a candle at the time of death as we believe it is the quintessential spiritual symbol of a human being. The wick and the flame symbolise the body and the soul and the bond between them. The flame represents the soul that strives forever upward, bringing it home between death and the funeral. Using 7 digital candles, we channel light to fill the emptiness of each interrupted journey and each fractured family. In our memorial room, we use the flame to illuminate the rituals of the Holocaust denied. A single gold star that is pinned to the walls can be dedicated by family members commemorating the individual name of the survivor who settled in Melbourne after the war. A single bronze star that is pinned to the walls can be dedicated by families as a plaque to commemorate each of their individual family members or whole families that were murdered and wiped out. The plaques are the heart of the memorial room and have been grafted indelibly into the space by adorning every surface of the surrounding walls. Together, we will create an abstract representation of Melbourne's Holocaust community and claim back the individual identities of a tribe of people once branded, always branded. Reflecting endlessly into the depths of the moat that borders the floor and ceiling, the endless sea of stars become the apparitions, figments, outlines of those who did not survive the hellfire, their memory carried by the wind of their legacy in the generations that followed, and together with the flame breathe colour and hope into memorialisation. Destruction starts with the destruction of identity, by labelling Jews, by ostracising Jews, by tattooing Jews. The memorial room reminds us of the importance of the individual and community strength, and that we will not tolerate being collectively branded again, not now or in the future. Across the threshold to left and right, we have placed a bench seat, an inverted bluestone triangle that pivots on the finest line between life and death. Lower in height than usual is the symbolic enactment of remorse and sadness, or homage to those who are unable to sit shiva, the week-long mourning period in the Jewish religion for loved ones who perished. In the nook or burrow or hiding place, cut into the steel-lined walls of the old bay windows is a fine vertical slot that diffuses the perspective to the outside world. It is a singular vertical opening that enables you to peer through the frames of the old bay window, like my great-grandparents did when they took their son away, or maybe a voyeuristic peephole, or simply a place to stop, to disconnect, or just take a breath because we can. At the cursive altar, which has been deliberately placed in front of the diffused natural light as a place to write a message in the memorial room book that rests on top. Its design reinforcing a simple message in Hebrew letters, Zachor, or remember. We cut the Star of David into a quadrant, and like the survivors who fled Europe after the war, we have placed it in the furthest corner of the world, or room. Visitors can pick up a rock from below the memorial bench, a piece of Melbourne's bluestone, and place it on the polished stone floor in the corner of the room. Piled like the shoes of our ancestors, or stones that we leave on a gravesite to show that we have visited, it will become an abstract symbol of our community's collective memory. The walls of the 13-metre-high atrium above follow the lines of the dissected Star of David, creating a deep void that pierces through history, a negative space that is carved or scratched through the building mass above. As you reflect into the void, you might perceive this as a dark, deep wound that can never heal, a burial or a search for truth directed towards the earth. But as we can only look up towards the sky from this perspective, we're liberated within a transitional space that celebrates lightness that emerges from the darkness. Our wider community will reflect on a reconstructed symbol of hope and are reminded of the restored wholeness of a culture that not only defied extermination, but also went on to build a nation.